And that's right, Rafit? We should be recording. Okay. All right, everybody. Well, welcome to our first online Zoom meeting, the economics chapter of the System Dynamics Society. We have a bunch of people joining us today, which is really cool. And this is sort of an organizational meeting, I guess. And let me ask, I guess, at the beginning for everybody who's participating to go around the room, the virtual room, and explain who they are briefly on the order of 2 minutes or something like that. I'll be pleased to start. So my name is Mike Radzicki, and I served as the president of the System Dynamics Society back in 2006, and previous to that, VP meetings, secretary, policy council, whatever. And I think I started the economics chapter back in 2003, and just to get together folks who wanted to use system dynamics and the feedback perspective and so forth to do economics. And I'm trying to see if people want to resurrect our chapter and perhaps meet virtually on a regular basis. So I'll leave it there. And maybe Ali, do you want to say a few words?
Yes, I'm Ali Mashayekhi from Tehran. I also served as System Dynamics President some years ago. I teach System Dynamics, 2 courses in System Dynamics to a group of students here in Iran at Sharif University of Technology, and I'm glad to be here with you. And I'm interested in applying System Dynamics in economics.
Great. Lars.
Hi, sorry. I'm still struggling with the techniques here. My name is Lars. I've been hiding a while for at least a while, more, I would say more than 10 years, but I'm still teaching system dynamics in actually 2 courses. And I used to be a policy council member, I would say 10 or 12 years ago, and I'm still happy to see all those faces. I still remember just joining this meeting because I would like to say that I'm still alive and I'm still deeply interested in this stuff. And I'm glad to hear that you reactivate all this.
Great. Thank you, Lars. Steve. So you got to unmute here.
No.
Oh, wait.
All right.
Oh.
Now, unmuted?
Yeah, we got you. Yeah.
Okay. So I was professor of economics at Kingston. I'm now a professor at large, funded on Patreon, as it happens. And my interest in system dynamics goes back to the early 1990s when I developed the model of Minsky's financial instability hypothesis. What I'm doing now is developing software I call Minsky, which is a system dynamics program directed mainly at economics, continuous time only, and supports what I call godly tables, double entry bookkeeping tables to handle modeling financial flows. And that's the area I'd like to resurrect within the system dynamics community here.
Great. Thank you, Steve. Suleiman? Suleiman, can you hear?
You can unmute him. Can you hear you?
Well, Suleiman?
He looks frozen. I think his screen's frozen.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Tim, as long as you're popping in, come on.
Hi, my name's Tim Clancy. I'm ABD PhD candidate at WPI. I've been there for a couple years now. My interests are a little different than economics. It's counterterrorism, counter-radicalization, insurgency studies. My research program is using system dynamics and violence and instability. But in building a lot of these models, there's a key economic component, obviously, and feedback with economic sectors. So I also have a lot of experience on the conflict defense SIG running peer-to-peer mentoring groups through the SIGs as well as at WPI. And so I love hearing about the resurgence of some of these activities and want to lend my support.
Thank you, Tim. Brett?
Hi, Brent Andrews, and I've had a long-standing, if somewhat casual, interest in system dynamics for a very long time. I think I was there with you in 2003 at the meeting in New York where where the group started. And after leaving the private sector, I'm now returning to the grad school this fall for the PhD program here at CU Boulder in archaeology, which is my vehicle into economic anthropology and economic modeling of ancient societies.
Great, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, let's see, Rafa.
Should I connect myself? This is Rafat Zaini. I'm sitting in the room with Mike and Mr. Saeed. I got my PhD in system dynamics and organizational behavior from Worcester Polytechnic. So I'm interested in organizations and organizational dissent in particular, especially in universities. I've been the co-president of the business SIG at the society, and currently the assistant VP in marketing and communication at the society. Thank you. I'm glad to be here and engage. Thank you.
Thanks, Rafat. Khalid, is that you, or it says Saeed, or is that Saeed Langaruti?
I'm on lockdown, so.
Oh, okay, then it would be Saeed. So we have Khalid Saeed and Saeed Langaruti. So I was a little confused. But Khalid, could you please?
Yes, I'm Khalid Saeed. I work here at WPI with Mike, and I teach economics and system dynamics. I was System Dynamics Society president back in 1995. That was a while ago. And Ali and I were graduate students together.
Right. Good old time.
Yeah, we are old timers.
Thank you, Khalid. Saeed Langaruti.
Yes. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
So this is Said Langaruti. So let me tell my story. So I became interested in system dynamics when I read Professor Ali Mashaykh's dissertation at MIT, which was on economic development of Iran, on the basis of oil revenue. So I took that dissertation model and developed that, and that was at that time I was a master's student at Islam University of Technology. So working with Professor Mashayikhi, we published a paper based on that work, and then I realized that econometrics is not adequate to address economic development issues of developing countries because of the lack of data or high quality data. So I started to continue that work. I went to WPI and worked with Professor Radziki to get my PhD in system dynamics and economics from Worcester Polytechnic. And then I finished my studies, I think, in 2017. And now I'm here at New Mexico State University working as a postdoc and also graduate faculty. I started to teach a system dynamics course this semester, this spring, and that is on system dynamics for understanding economics. So that is the course I'm teaching here. My research here is on economic development issues related to water, water resources shortage, and management issues in arid and semi-arid areas. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Saeed. Let's see, Dan Arthur. I see he's logged on. I don't see a microphone next to him.
No, nor do I. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess maybe it's just sort of lurking or whatever you call it. Then I don't know who this is. Somebody is on the phone? Area code?
Nathan Forrester's here.
Oh, Nathan. Great.
How are you?
Yeah.
Hi.
Hey.
Shall I give a quickie on myself?
Yeah, that would be great. Super, yeah.
I've been involved with system dynamics since 1967 under my father's tutelage, and went back, got my doctoral degree at MIT in system dynamics and economics with Bob Solow as my chairman. My I did an undergraduate thesis on the sort of change between the shift between sectors from agriculture to manufacturing to services and so on in a very long-term view of economic development. And then for my doctoral dissertation, did work on differentiating between business cycles and longer cycles and what the causes were, and did some work on trying to figure out, what the feedback loops were that were most dominant on in different modes of behavior. And I've been out of system dynamics for some time. I worked for Georgia Pacific, and I'm now actually doing more linear programming modeling of pulp and paper mills. But I'm still interested. So there you go.
Great. Thank you very much, Nathan. Have I missed anyone? I'm looking at my list here, other than Dan, who I don't necessarily think can talk to us. Oh, wait, there's a wait. Dan, can you unmute and talk to us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Hi there.
There's Mark Nelson, I think, from SD Society.
Oh, Mark is joining. Okay. Very good. So, Dan, sorry, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Let me just turn up the volume here. Okay.
Yes.
How about now, Dan? Can you say your name just so you know whose voice it is?
Hello.
Yeah, okay, there we go. Go ahead.
Hi there.
No, Marty.
Hello.
I heard hello just then. Is that you,
Yeah.
Dan?
Hi there. Hi, folks.
Speak away, Dan.
Oh,
We
hey.
can hear you properly. Yeah.
I can just about hear you all.
This is a Maxwell Smart experience again, guys, isn't it? The old cone of silence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Dan, we could hear you if you just talk.
Yeah, hi there. I can just about hear you.
Okay, go ahead.
Tell us about yourself, Dan.
I'm in the middle of some AnyLogic modeling, so slightly multitasking, but hope you can hear me. And
Yes.
have we got Brian Dangerfield online?
Who?
Have we got Brian Dangerfield?
No.
Or Bob Kavanagh?
No, Bob can't make it. I don't remember hearing from Brian. I could be wrong. Lots of emails on this topic recently. So Dan, if you could just give us, a couple of 3 sentences about who you are and what you do.
Okay, I'm based in London. I'm working on some agent-based modelling as it happens at the moment, and I've been working in the economics area on and off, perhaps a bit off more than on, of late, and recently been working with Brian Dangerfield and Bob Kavanagh, who are putting together the book that is loosely entitled Feedback Economics, and most of you know about this book, and I think it's been submitted to Springer for review for one of their publication series, one of the book series on economics. Is that right? Does anybody else know about it?
I haven't heard about it, but
I put a paper in.
But anyway, yes, I welcome the chance to revisit or revive things in the economics chapter. I know things have drifted a bit, and I haven't been at the international conferences for a while. So I'm looking to see what we can do to revive things. My feeling is that we're a group of individuals who do our own thing, somewhat geographically isolated as usual.
yeah.
Apart from you folks at Worcester Polytechnic Institute, who are handily co-located, but the rest of us are a little bit isolated as individuals, and we tend to do our own thing a bit, and so there isn't that much collective activity. So that's the drawback of it.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And then Mark, I notice you're visiting with us. Mark Nelson.
Yep. Hi, I'm of course, the new executive director for the society. I was mostly just listening in. I'm always interested to hear what the different groups are talking about. And you had a couple items on your agenda, which I may or may not be able to help with. So I was just kind of curious as to what.
Great. Well, you're always welcome. Thank you so much, Mark. Okay. Have I missed anyone, or has everybody introduced themselves to this point? I'm kind of scrolling through the list here. As you can tell, we have quite a diverse group of folks from all over the world. In some cases, I think Australia, it might be, Steve, you can help me, like 3 a.m. or something. So I don't think it worked out for everybody time-wise, but we're recording it. So we're going to have a YouTube channel, and we'll post our videos, any of our online meetings, so folks who can't participate directly can see what happened and so forth. So, all right. So with that, in the interest of time and keeping our time together to an hour, what I'd like to do is share my screen and just show my agenda items that I had shared with most of you the other day. Here's our brief introductions. These are just things that came to mind as I was thinking about, oh boy, if we're going to get together, what should we talk about? And I kind of regarded this as an introductory reorganizational meeting, whatever you want to call it. And I don't know if you want to go through these items in order, or if people have other items that are more pressing. There's no particular rhyme or reason here. Absent anybody weighing in, I'll just start with number 2, but I'll pause and let's see if somebody wants to talk about something.
Yep.
Okay, so hearing none at the moment. Chapter officers. Now, there is a constitution for the chapter, and we're supposed to have officers and what have you. This may or may not be a great idea. I have no particular position on the matter. But of course, if somebody's going to be an officer, they're going to be in charge of sort of doing what I'm doing and what have you, I guess, versus I'm happy to just do this like I'm doing right now. Might become burdensome at some point, who knows, but right now this is not a big deal to have Zoom meetings. So is there any thought on officers? I don't think if we violate the Constitution, anybody will care, really. We can always revise.
Mike, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, this is Mark. So this is actually one where I actually do have to say we have to care a little bit because as we've been going through some audit items, particularly as a chapter, you really are going to have officers. As we are going through some legal components, there's actually being a review done across our chapters. So, and this is one of those questions where it's chapter versus SIG. For chapters, they will have to have officers.
So that was basically my comment. I wanted to say, shouldn't we address question number 7 before talking about question number 1?
Back in a second.
Yeah, there could chapter activities, chapter SIG. Yeah, number 7. Seems to me that the minimal, if we want to be active, is to have Zoom meetings. These are quite easy to do. We can have people presenting papers or what have you. Of course, folks are all over the world, so to try and physically meet is quite difficult.
Oh, yeah, but I just have a bit of this protein bar. I'll get you going, honey. I'm stuck in this meeting, so when I get out of that, I might go to the gym and have food later with you.
So, Steve, I don't think you muted yourself there, buddy. I don't think you had muted yourself, Steve. You're ordering lunch or something there.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, but anyway, so we're saying, the Zoom meetings are just one way to quite easily meet and share papers and what have you. We could physically meet or do other stuff, but that was, like at a minimum, it seems to me that if we wanted to be active, it's something we should do, and I'll let others weigh in.
So on the organization, this is Khalid. I think I agree with Mark that we need to have some organization in line with what is in the society bylaws and constitution. Now, my question is that economics chapter
Does it already exist in the society?
Yes, and it is a chapter, not a SIG.
And are there already some officers there?
There was probably someone who's the last president and what have you, but I don't know who that is. We'd have to figure out who that is.
Mark, do you have any information on this?
I think I might be the last one actually, as it happens.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Well, I'm not sure if that's out of date really, but I think that some re-elections didn't happen in the last couple of years.
So may I ask, so Mark, I don't interrupt your comment, but Mark, if we become a SIG instead of a chapter, what happens then?
So SIG, you just have to have essentially two people who are, I believe, the contact point or the reference point. So we have a contact point for the SIG, but it's not quite as formal as what the conditions are around chapters. In part because chapters actually have legally different structural rights. So this question of like being able to raise dues or being able to do other things which might generate revenues. And because we have different chapters which do that, we now have a lot more scrutiny around what is happening with our chapters. So we've been told we have to get a little bit more formalized, and we're trying to clean that up. So that it's the difference between a chapter and a SIG. There is the legal elements which apply to it.
So it seems like a SIG is just easier to do. We don't have to worry about officers and so forth, unless people want to be officers and have that credential and take that responsibility. But I don't want to, I personally don't care, but.
This is Nathan. I vote for SIGs.
Same for me, I think, yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Let's get some substance first.
Colin, did you have other?
So actually, I think someone should take responsibility for organizing, and that title of an officer should be there, so it sort of reinforces the role that, hey, I have to do this. So I'm indifferent whether we should have it as a SIG or a chapter. I think chapter is already, since it already exists, it's approved by the Policy Council. If we form a SIG, it has to go through the process, which probably is not a big deal. And then the question would be that should the chapter be closed and SIG started? So I'm wrestling with these organizational issues, and we need to resolve those.
Yeah, we'd be the first chapter probably to decertify or something, have that distinction.
Who's an expert at this? Oh, well, we have Mark here. Yeah. So Mark, can you tell us what might be the best way to proceed?
I mean, my sense is it could be handled by a simple vote to the Policy Council. We'll come through a motion, probably through the VP for membership, but it would be probably just a simple motion to actually change the status from a chapter to a SIG. I think it would probably be a fairly simple process. Probably would have to slight change to the charter, but that wouldn't be too difficult to manage.
So what would be the advantage of being a SIG as against a chapter?
Again, the primary difference really is going to be one around possible collection of funds. So originally, the economics chapter, my understanding, I obviously wasn't here at that time, but my understanding was that originally the economics chapter formed as a chapter rather than a SIG because there had originally been a plan to collect dues. So that was why they chose to form as a chapter rather than the SIG at the time, because the SIGs can't collect dues. Really, the big difference is around funds and fund handling like that. But again, because regulations have been changing a bit, we're going to be doing a review of all the different chapters and making sure that they have the officers in place and other things in place. And there may be some chapters which will lose their charters if those components aren't in place, because we have a legal compliance issue that we've been asked to address.
So I think what we are anticipating is that this particular group would be larger than the subset who might be society members. Mike and thinking?
Yeah, one issue is if we were to lure economists who aren't necessarily system dynamicists or system dynamics society members to routinely join us at our meetings, whether virtual or face-to-face, is that a problem if it's a chapter versus a SIG?
Under the current bylaws, no, there's not a problem on either one there. I know that there are people in both the SIGs and the chapters who are not currently members of the society. So the one is currently restricted just to members.
So that's it.
But you mentioned that the chapters can collect their own dues for the chapter, right? And
That is correct.
SIGs cannot.
SIGs cannot.
So does that affect us?
I don't know. But in the past, it wouldn't have mattered. It would have been more of a pain because you'd have to manage them and whatever. But there's probably a tax form at the end of the year and whatever as well. I don't know.
SIGs can apply for funding from the society, I believe. Is that correct, Mark?
Yes, that is. You can apply to funding through the Strengthening the Field Fund. So as an example, like the Transportation SIG had recently applied and received a grant from the Strengthening the Field Fund to assist with a meeting that they were having next week.
So what's
Mark,
the strategy in transforming our organization from chapter to SIG? What do we do?
Mark, can I have a suggestion? This is Ali.
Yeah, hi, sure.
I suggest that Khalid and somebody else who is familiar with the chapter of society, take a look at it carefully and come up with the suggestion in the next meeting. And I think in this meeting we can talk more about the substance, how this group who are interested in economics and system dynamics can really jointly create substance and how they can support each other's work. And then in the next meeting, we can conclude, we can look at Khalid's suggestion and decide whether we should be a chapter or SIG.
Okay, yeah, we can't resolve it right now. Thank you for that, Ali. Yeah, why don't we do, is that okay? We'll just let Khalid, and he can pick a helper. Maybe it's me or whoever, it doesn't matter. And they can study it and get back to us with some recommendations, pros and cons and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Khalid is saying okay.
Yeah, fine.
Mike and I can
Khalid and I can sort of noodle it. All right, thank you for that, Ali. Yeah, that moves things along. Cool. So, all right, in the interest of keeping things moving then here, let's get rid of the affiliate members because that's kind of intertwined, and that question was kind of asked and answered, that either way we can have chapter or SIG, we can have non-society members join us, so that's cool. Scope of interest, how about this one here? Do we want to take a broader view of what system dynamics is, the term is, or should we retain the pure understanding of what that means in its application to economics? Similarly, do we want to look at the use of machine learning and other modern data science techniques and how they might be used in concert with whatever we mean by system dynamics to do economic analysis?
I'll chuck in a few cents worth there. I think it's best to maintain the narrow view. The reason being that there are plenty of groups out there doing things like multi-agent modeling and machine learning and so on. And we can look at those techniques within our own discussions as well. But the main thing, this is about promoting a system dynamics view, and that actually gets a very, very small ear in economics. Most people who revolt against the neoclassical equilibrium approach end up looking at multi-agent modeling. I'd rather say let's actually hit the drum for a tops-down system dynamics view and make that our focus, and then internally we'll discuss the other stuff, but make our banner definitely around system dynamics.
Thank you for that, Steve. Good point. Anyone else?
This is Nathan. I would support that. I think if we go too far afield, it just become diffuse and diverse.
Yeah,
and
watering
nothing's
ourselves
going to
down.
happen.
Yeah.
Okay, Nathan, thank you. Yeah. Other thoughts on this question?
I would agree with both Steve and Nathan that we need to have a focal point in something narrow. System dynamics is a good niche.
Okay. Stocks and flows and feedback loops and such. And,
yes.
Okay. Pure, the sort of traditional meaning of the term. Okay, cool. Thank you, Colin.
Yeah, and I second that too.
Ali, thank you. There's 4 votes for pure system dynamics or the traditional meaning of that term.
The reason is that I don't think we have exploited the potential of system dynamics in understanding, in providing a better understanding of economics. So if we focus on that, it would be both, it would be good both for economics and also development of system dynamics application.
Anyone else offer an opinion on that?
This is an opinion. I wouldn't call it a vote because I'm not sure. I'm economist, but one thing we see a lot lately when it comes to those other types of analytics is the request of how do these all work together. So when it comes to all the things going on in advanced analytics, at least in the violence space, what we're using system dynamics often is to say, hey, how do these reconcile? How do these integrate? How do these work together? And creating the system view that pulls into it or subsumes from within it, kind of what I think it was Steve was saying, the top-down approach brings all the bottoms-up effort and provides the context to show how they all work together. And there's been a lot of interest in that recently. Over.
Great. Thanks, Tim.
Yes, I would probably agree with previous comments, otherwise it's become too diverse. Although I recently noticed the quite lengthy article by John Sturman celebrating our 60th anniversary, which really tried to expand the scope of system dynamics, suggesting that if you have to use disaggregate modeling, then you do, and you still call it system dynamics. And so I note that there are forces to include everything and anything, but I probably agree with the previous contributors that we have to stay focused, otherwise we're going to lose our distinct contribution.
Okay, thank you, Dan. I've heard no one say anything about not or broadening the perspective. That everybody's saying we should not. We should stick to the pure or traditional meaning. So that's pretty. Let's call it the consensus or forming consensus at the moment, I guess.
Just on one point, Mike, would you include stock flow consistent modeling in your definition?
Those folks use difference equation modeling primarily to do that. You know, Mark Lavoie and so forth. I certainly wouldn't, if somebody who did that sort of work wanted to join with us or make a presentation, I certainly wouldn't exclude them. And I've taken some of Lavoie and Godley's models and translated them into their equivalent system dynamics representation and looked at the feedback structure and whatever. So I guess I would say, yeah, but that's, you know, I'm hoping that we get real live economists beyond our group here to regard us as a useful group doing good work, and it's worth their time to take a look at our papers and possibly make presentations and so forth.
I agree. Yeah, I'll second that. I mean, I've just met with Mark just recently in Paris, and the reason they do distance equations is they don't know that there's anything superior. It really is an ignorance thing. And I think what I'd like to do in system dynamics is to teach them about the need for continuous time thinking, which they really haven't got their heads around. So definitely include them. In a sense, we want to teach them how to do it properly.
Right. Yeah, Mark is pretty good. And I think when in my conversations with him as well, he's been kind of open to.
He's open, definitely. Yeah, you've got people like Matthias Griselli's turned up in that area now, and Matthias has a PhD in quantum mechanics and continuous time. He eats for breakfast. So he's now doing continuous time stock flow consistent modeling using R. So it's definitely happening. We just have to educate the rest of the community to chuck away those difference equations to do something sensible.
Yeah. Okay, so, you know, intertwined with this then is this issue of trying to get economists who might be inclined to give our stuff a look, an invitation to join us. Is that a good idea?
Yeah, sure. I agree.
Like let's say Mark Lavoie.
Absolutely. No, definitely. Invite Mark along, get him to see more than me mouthing off about the need to do continuous time.
Yeah. Okay, so that's good. So we will welcome any brothers and sisters from non-system dynamics, but from dynamic economics who might want to give our stuff a look and see what happens. No idea what will happen, but maybe good things will happen. But obviously, Steve, it's a good point that the stock flow consistent people, or I'm sorry, Dan, it's a good place to start. I mean, they are somewhat inclined to, a position like a system dynamicist would take on a good model. So, yeah,
I think actually on that front, it's, if you think about it, getting economics to use system dynamics, then stock flow consistent modeling people are the best audience because they're trying to do it already. They just don't know the right techniques.
Cool. All right. Anybody else want to weigh in on that? Or is that, I think the short answer is yeah, we should, where possible, recruit economists who might be inclined to take a look at our stuff. Okay, cool. All right, let's, again, just keeping things moving along here. We've already kind of said, we should, where it makes sense, our group will be willing to look at empirically grounding our models in one way or another. So that I don't think that's controversial, but as long as we stay within the realm of traditional system dynamics. How about this, a web presence? Let's talk about this one over here. Along with a YouTube presence, recording our online meetings and so forth, do we want to maintain a chapter website with stuff on it? And if so, what stuff?
This is Nathan. It seems premature, but who knows? Unless we have a collection of models or something that people feel need public exposure. But
models are one thing. The YouTube channel or web presence could involve teaching videos. How do you do it? If Mark Lavoie says, I get it, it's kind of a neat thing, how do I learn how to do it? We say, go to our YouTube channel. There's instructional videos or something. Just throwing ideas out there.
One observation from the last couple of years where I've been working within the society to help develop these things is sometimes an interim step to the full website is something as simple as a Facebook group page. If you have a Facebook group page and the group interacts on it, that can link to your YouTube channel, and you actually, between those two, have a lot of the functionality of what might be a traditional website. What we found in trying to grow these things is that an actual standalone website is just, since so many people are on Facebook, it's kind of painful how much that's taken over. But the reality is so many people interact on Facebook, they're more likely to interact there than they are necessarily on a website. That's just another thing to hit during the day. So there are a lot of SIGs and groups now that have a Facebook page, a YouTube channel, and that's pretty much their web presence. And that seems to be working for some. You have to have a minimum mass, otherwise it's a dead page that no one talks on. And obviously people have to be willing to post on Facebook, but it is an interim step to sort of develop those capabilities.
Thank you, Tim. That's a good, very good points.
Now, if there's a web presence, how should it be linked with the society web presence? Does it need to be linked?
I think we have space that we're not using on the System Dynamic Society's website. Each chapter and SIG maybe has their own space. I don't know if Mark can.
That would be correct.
Yeah.
There's also, that's like a couple of SIGs use the forums a bit as well, but yes, there is some web space.
I think it's a good idea to have the web presence, like a simple website with the blog, and also in this website also to inform, how to join to the chapter or to the SIG. So somehow informative, and also there to put the information for our, annual meeting face-to-face, or, the link to YouTube channels and so on.
Yeah, I think a big, going back to my previous point, I think a popular thing that the chapter could do would be instructional videos. Because in my experience, when I've gone around preaching to economists who I think would be interested system dynamics, the schools of thought, like let's say the post-Keynesians that do stock flow consistent modeling, usually the older folks say, good job, Mike, cool, thumbs up, go for it, but they're not particularly interested in learning themselves. I won't say everyone, but you know, the people of established careers kind of do what they do. But the younger people, the doctoral students and so forth, are the ones who say, oh, really, I'd like to maybe look at that for a dissertation or whatever. But then they get stymied because they don't know, you know, how to learn how to do it properly. They get a hold of the software and then bad things happen. They don't know what they're doing. And so if we had instructional videos, I think that would be very, very helpful to people. Of course, that's a lot of work, but that could be chapter activity or whatever you want to say.
Yeah, I think you also need to show people how to do the like stock flow consistent modeling in a system dynamics framework. That's why, that's in a sense why I invented Minsky with the Godley tables, to make that automatic. Without that, they will get into things like R and so on, and you're going to be getting into doing programming, you know, array processing and stuff like that, and thinking it's dynamics.
Okay, so that's maybe something we should do. So chapter activities, that was one of the items here under chapter activities that leaped to mind. Let me sort of change some of the things I'm calling to your attention here. Change them back. So now other activities. So I'm guessing we should regularly do Zoom webinars. Is that the consensus, that what we're doing now is a good idea periodically, like once a month, once a quarter?
Somebody else comment?
No, just throwing that out as, you know, we can do this again if you want.
I think a regular seminar will show what we're actually doing. Like, you know, once a month, one person has a presentation for 20 minutes or so, and we can talk about it. That's worthwhile. Don't want to do, we're not overload. I know I'm far too busy with everything else I'm doing as well, but I'd benefit from once or twice, you know, once a month or once every 2 months, having a little seminar, and here's somebody's issue and it's going live at this particular time, so you know you can schedule it in.
So, okay, so regular Zoom webinars, and regular is once a month, or is that too frequent?
Once every 2 months, I would think.
Once every 2 months, okay. Thank you, Steve. Anybody else have a thought on that?
Just Nathan, I agree.
Once every 2 months.
Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah, I would agree with that too.
8 weeks or so, thereabouts, taking into account holidays and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so on the order of 5-6 times a year, something like that. Probably more like 5, given holidays and such, vacations and whatever.
Yes, summer. I guess you might.
Yeah, when the weather's So maybe it's for like five Zoom things a year.
That's about right.
Yeah, if there's interest, we put together, from doing the peer-to-peer stuff over about 3 to 4 years, we put together some best practices just that we found. And some of them are like taking the summer off because the conference comes up. It's a downtime for most folks. Starting them and ending them on certain schedules. We can share that, Mike. I can send that to you if you want to share it with the group. But it's from the conflict defense SIG, the WPI peer-to-peer, just what we've learned and experimented with over the years.
Okay. Yeah, I think we can always meet more frequently if there's a need and people want to, but you know, no need to overdrive the headlights at the beginning here. Intertwined with that, physically meeting somewhere is probably not a good idea initially, although I don't want to speak for everybody else. And if we're going to meet, you know, do we want to meet, where'd it go here? Hang on. There have been some suggestions about economics organizations that would be possibly open to system dynamics, one being the National Association of Business Economists and the other European Association for Evolutionary Political Economy. Do we want to physically meet annually, every other year, whatever? somewhere, possibly at an economics conference.
I think it'd be a good idea to meet at an economics conference as convenient. It'll be very hard to pre-plan it. We might have an idea, okay, if there is this economics conference, we'll do it right there, or we'll do it another session. And so it will probably vary from year to year. It would need to be designed on the fly, I suppose. But I think it's a good idea to do that
Periodically.
As possible.
Yeah, the sort of thing that would happen realistically is there would be a conference. It might be one of these on my list here or something else. And someone would say, you know, that's a good one at which to meet. Steve, remember we met in Grenoble a couple of 3 years ago at a post-Keynesian conference, and that seemed like a good place.
Yeah.
And, you know, if somebody decided that was a good idea, they could offer to the conference organizers to create a parallel session, as college said, something like that, and invite people. And those who could come would come, this sort of thing. But to suggest that it's every single year we meet at the XYZ thing, I think is a bit premature. But periodically when it makes sense, I guess, or at least I think Colin and I think that's a good idea. I don't know if anybody else has thoughts.
Yeah. I think it's a good idea. Just have to find a conference that works as an economic conference to all coordinate at. On that front, I think I'd rule out the ASSA, which is a difficult time around Christmas for a lot of academics other than in the USA. Maybe the Evolutionary Association of Political Economy, which meets about maybe July, maybe more effective.
Okay. Yeah, time of year, absolutely. Crucial, yeah, for people to be able to get away. All right, so I think that's step 2, not step 1, but we're not ruling it out, is what I'm hearing.
It might be interesting to look at a couple different groups instead of just staying locked into one for variety.
Yeah, absolutely. Anywhere it would make sense to meet, not only where a school of thought would, or the conference theme or whatever would welcome us, but also time of year, physical location, all that stuff would go into it. All right, so what I'm hearing is let's not rule that out, but let's leave that sort of flexible, I suppose. How about this? Let me, again, switch our attention from those topics. I'm just watching the clock here to make sure we get everybody out of here in an hour. How about offering service to the System Dynamics Society? I know we're doing, it was mentioned, a book on feedback economics. I guess that's service to the society in some sense, but refereeing, not just for the journal, but for the annual conference if there's economics papers. Of course, you can do special issues, these sorts of matters. Is there any interest in doing that? And what I mean, we probably all sort of do that anyway as individuals, but what I'm getting at is, you know, tell Mark or tell Yaman Barlas, the editor of the review, like, look, send the chapter or the SIG, whatever we're going to be. Econ papers, we'll handle them. Tell whoever the conference organizer is, send us. We will referee the conference papers if they're related to economics. We'll take that burden off of your hands and it's a chapter activity. Or do we want to have nothing to do with that stuff? Because refereeing is so much fun.
Yeah, tell me about it. Yeah,
there's one kind of work there too, activity that's come about in the last couple of years with the emergence of the summer school in the society, that I don't know if the chapter is at all interested in helping teach the summer school, because each year I know it's kind of separate from the society, but it's directly linked as it's right before the conference. There's always a need, and Mark may speak more of this, of teachers and people. So if there's an economics themed summer society or summer school, it might be a good way to connect with the economic SIG to some of the new students coming up.
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, I was thinking of it when Tim spoke about it. There is summer school and there is the doctoral seminar at the conference. What do you call it? Is it
PhD colloquium.
PhD colloquium.
Oh, yeah.
I think these two organizations that already exist might be, I mean, they are usually young people learning system dynamics. And I think the SIG/chapter can make productive contribution there.
Yeah. So again, just a thought, if we're going to band together and do stuff, the question arises, what's the stuff we're going to do, right? I do think, every couple of months meeting and having a paper presented and let people talk about it is a great idea. I look forward very much to doing that and possibly asking economists to join us or even present, a Mark Lavoie sort of person, let's say. All good. I think that's super good. And some of these other things, I think will naturally come to us over time versus us proactively going after some of these things.
Yeah.
Again, we don't want to overdrive our headlights here, but just more of as food for thought in terms of the sorts of things we might be doing if we're going to join together. I'm looking at my clock. I see 7 minutes to go here. Anybody have any other things they wanted to chat about?
I think go ahead, Steve.
Sorry, I think a major thing is doing an input to the regular summer schools that post-Keynesians put on to teach system dynamics at those summer schools to the young students. That might be the most useful thing. So put your name forward to say Rethinking Economics, ask where the summer schools are, and see if we can get send one person to help send one person anyway to give a talk on system dynamics at those summer schools.
Are those at UMKC these days, or where are they, Steve, the summer schools?
All over the place. There's a lot of one in Germany. I've been invited. I've used too many requests for these things, but there are a lot of them taking place in centralized in Germany, but coordinating with all the European Rethinking Economics groups. That's the way that's what I'd look at.
Right. Steve, I think it would be very interesting to start looking at how Minsky, your software program, could be used with the techniques of system dynamics. And certainly mathematically, it's virtually the same as, VenSim and AnyLogic and Stella. And
Yeah, definitely. It's more of an engineering heritage than a system dynamics one, like more MATLAB and VisSim in style than VenSim and so on. But yes, definitely, I'd like to show that off.
Yeah, and with the godly tables and so forth, I wonder if system dynamicists would take a dive on it and say, all right, here's how we would use any dynamic software, and now with the additional features that Minsky has, what might we do with that? I think that would be a real interesting.
Yeah, well, I might give a seminar on that front if you like, and then if we want to have a startup seminar, I can show the latest state of Minsky and how how the godly tables supplement the flowchart technology.
Wonderful. Yeah, in fact, that very well might be the next time we meet, ask you to do that, because I think everybody would be quite interested in seeing that. Yeah.
Yep, sure.
Okay, so I'm going to try, unless somebody has anything else, I'm going to try and summarize what I heard here this afternoon.
Before that, I have.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
Do you have any plan to develop a strategic plan for this chapter or this group or whatever we call it? Because it's at the moment it sounds like that we have some ad hoc, ideas and then talking about those things. So shouldn't we prioritize our strategies? What is the best thing to do with our limited resources, and then have a plan to achieve those goals? I mean, as a kind of more formal or coherent, strategic plan, or what we would call it, mission statement or something like that, vision statement. Are we doing something like that, or do we have any idea to develop something like that?
Well, we could. I mean, you could say a small group of people, 3 people, let's say, would meet and digest what they've heard today and come back with something next time we meet, or share it by email or something that this is, based on what we've heard, here's a sort of a strategic plan, do this first, then this, maybe this down the road or something. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Anybody?
So can say volunteer to?
Sounds like Khalid Saeed is volunteering, Saeed Langarudi, to head the strategic planning committee.
Since he proposed it.
That's fair.
So Saeed, yeah, if you would want to take charge of sort of organizing that, a small number of people, that's fine. I would be, if you asked me to join in that conversation, I would help. I don't know if anybody else is inclined, but you know, it's not a bad idea. Now, if anybody else would be interested in participating in such a chit chat.
Yeah, I'll be happy to participate, but I think, I don't know how much I can contribute there.
Yeah, I mean, all we would do is chit chat and come up with something to share with people. That would be, you know, beyond what's on the screen in front of us, I guess. But all right, well, let's keep that in our hip pocket. Maybe we do something there. So let me try and summarize because I'm watching my clock here. I want to get everybody out of here in 1 hour. So yeah. I heard that we're going to come up with a proposal on the chapter versus SIG thing. And I guess that's Khalid and myself will investigate the pros and cons and recommend to this group next time what we might do based on what we've learned and present both sides as well as we can. I heard, I guess, that that's intertwined, by the way, with the chapter officers deal. There's either it's mandatory if we're a chapter and not at all mandatory if we're a SIG. I guess there's this issue of the strategic plan. We might do something with that. We are going to meet about every 2 months, once online, and hear a paper presentation or some software presentation, whatever the case may be, something of interest to us all. We'd like to invite economists or other system dynamicists who would be interested in what we have to say, whether or not they're members of the System Dynamics Society. I heard that we want to retain our focus on system dynamics as traditionally understood and not go beyond that to broadly dynamic systems, including ABM and discrete event and who knows what other techniques are floating around out there, although we are open to integrating traditional system dynamics, continuous time modeling, blah, 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 with modern techniques from data science or whatever other interesting twists and turns there might be. On a web presence, it sounds like Tim had a great idea to sort of focus on a Facebook page and a YouTube channel and sort of go from there. That seems like a good idea, I guess. In terms of physically meeting, we said probably periodically a good idea, but let's not start there. But there might be some organizations that would make sense to approach about putting on a session and what have you. Obviously, time of year, physical location, and all that stuff would come into play. So there's not going to be just some, you know, annual thing that we do every year, but we'll leave that a little flexible. Maybe some teaching stuff or whatever as a service to the field or in general for those who want to learn. That would be a chapter activity, some refereeing perhaps. And everybody else is just glad to be here, I guess, today, unless I missed something.
That's great.
All right, so let's leave it there. Thank you so much for your participation. We'll be sending out more email when we digest all of this and summarize all of this. And if you have any thoughts on what we might do going forward, please let me know.
Okay, thanks, Mike, for organizing it.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, thank you.
I will process the recording. We'll let everybody know where the recorded session will reside.
Okay.
Okay.
Mike.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Bye to sites. Also, everybody else. Okay, bye.
See you guys.
Make the recording.
There is a chat. Somebody sending it.
Okay. So what? I see a rolling donut, which makes me nervous.
Did you stop the recording?
No. How do I do that? Help me.
Can you minimize this box, this chat box?
This here? Yeah, like this? Oh, we cannot.
Oh, so we need to
Somewhere it has to say stop end meeting.
click more.